Hello and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Tosca Di Matteo, founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I'm super excited for this week's episode. And I'm going to be talking to Claire Campbell today. And here she is now, so we'll bring her on. Yes, we're about designing your future, and that it's an inside job. So we're just waiting for Claire to join. We'll kick it off. Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I gotta adjust myself because now I'm realizing I'm too close here.
I know I'm a bit close as well.
Ah,
This is my first ever Instagram live. Can you
oh my
believe
God, that's so exciting. Well, welcome.
you?
I'm wearing green in honor of Ireland today.
Hi.
Because that's where you're calling in from, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct. And it's 5 o'clock my time, so it's a bit later in the day. Uh,
Gotcha.
but yeah, good to see you. How's New
Yes,
York?
you too. It's good. We got a snowstorm yesterday, so New York is recovering from that. Um, And yeah, so Claire, I'm thrilled to have you on. I know you're so passionate about this topic of building a future is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
And we met in our coaching certification program, and here we are like a couple of years later. Um, and so I just wanted to again say thank you for making the time and really pass it over to you to introduce yourself and to share your story and like what you want people to know about you and your journey and what brings you here today.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm really honored that we get to spend this time together. And yeah, so like you said, we met in New York. I was living over there. I had a whole other life before I became a coach. I was in the corporate world, and I spent over 5 years in New York. And I kind of knew towards the end of the time there that once my corporate job ended, that I was not going to look for a replacement in the same field, that I wanted something more. I had come to that stage in my life where I thought, yeah, I think this corporate chapter is ready to be closed, and that I wanted to do something else. And it was a little bit scary, but I enrolled in the coaching for transformation course. And as soon as I joined and I met all those amazing people in our cohort and started to connect to people from all different walks of life, I just felt myself becoming more alive, I think, and I think it really confirmed to me that I was on the right track, and that this coaching work is very sacred, I would say, that the kinds of transformation that we can witness and be part of and guide is just phenomenal, really, when you get into the process. So I have been lucky to have had amazing coaches in my life, which also helped shape me to become a coach. So yeah, so I did the coaching certification as I was leaving my corporate job. And then when I came back to Ireland, I just started to launch my business, and I didn't have really any clue about the business side. So that's been a journey, and especially in the pandemic. But I believe that, we can all do amazing things when we put our minds to it. And I guess I just kind of jumped in. And the way I feel about, starting something new is you don't have to know everything, and that the answers will come as you start to take the first step on that journey. So, yeah, so back in Ireland, I actually was away for 13 years because I was also previous to New York and Switzerland. And so coming back was it was interesting for me to reconnect to Ireland and my family and friends that are here, and also to establish myself, because I moved to the West Coast. So I'm not originally from the area that I moved to. And yeah, but I love to discover new places, and the nature is really amazing around here, which is why I'm really what drew me over here. And the way of life as well. It's very relaxed, even more relaxed now that we have, or maybe I should say even more slower now that we have the pandemic. But I found it's been an amazing place for me to have landed and to have settled. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So I don't know, I've been talking for a while. I'm not sure if I've covered what
No,
you
no, that's beautiful, Claire. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your journey. I mean, I think that, well, first of all, I've been enjoying your stunning photos from, Ireland, and just the nature and the peacefulness, and you sharing so much of yourself, whether it's your blog or, in on your social media. And um, one of the questions I have in just what you shared was, this, you knew, like, what I heard you say is, like, you knew that, like, you didn't want to do the kind of job that you had been doing, the corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And how, I'm curious, just so many people, are finding themselves in this place of, I know I don't want this, I have no idea what. And so how much did you know? Or was that like a big journey in and of itself to identify like where you wanted to take your career next?
Yeah, I would say for me, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't an immediate solution for me. I think what I had to come to terms with was that that the current job and company that I was with, there was a restructure, and the jobs were going to be eliminated. So I knew that was coming. So I had time to kind of figure it out.
Mm.
And I think I really thought about where did I feel my strengths were, and where did I feel that I could add value and connect to my purpose, and do meaningful work. And I'm not saying that the corporate work is not meaningful. I don't want to say that, but when I say meaningful, I mean more connected to people's lives, And I had a 25-year cycle in the corporate world, and I worked with many amazing people on many amazing projects, and I was in the pharma industry, so it was all towards helping people's life,
Mm.
improving quality of life and all of that. But where I saw a lot personally was with people managing the stress, the workload, the long hours, not taking care of themselves, not taking care particularly of their bodies. And I would say I was one of those people, very much in my head all the time, very sedentary, sitting down at a desk all day. I was a member of a gym. I used to go a couple of times a week, but I wasn't really listening to my body or taking care of it or checking in with it. And I think that was part of it, that I realized that I didn't want to have a similar setup, as in, a sedentary corporate sitting down job. I also wanted to help people to connect more to what really brought them alive. And aliveness is something that, this term that I heard when we did our coaching for transformation, our leaders in the program used to talk about our aliveness, and I used to think to myself, I'm not sure I know what that feels like.
Mm.
And I can say now I do, but at the time I was so disconnected from that. So it became a journey. And like I said, I worked with amazing coaches through my corporate world, and I was in a particularly tough spot emotionally when my father passed away when I was living in New York. And I felt that I really did not know what to do with my life then. I just think it was kind of an awakening, when somebody very close to dies, and you think about, well, what's life really about? And where do I want to go? And what do I want to do with it? And, and I realized that now, if I wanted to make a change, it was now. The time was right. So I started to work towards that change. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try coaching, because even if I never became a coach, to go through a program that we went through was such a transformation in itself. It taught me so many skills that I could use anywhere. So I thought it would really help me exit my corporate career to do that in parallel. So that's what I ended up doing. And it was an amazing journey, because I could then, in my last few, say 6 months of my job, I could actually show up as a coach as well as my job and start to practice my coaching skills. And so I added so much value to the organization I was working for while I was exiting, because I was showing up as a coach. So it was great. And then it also gave me the experience to say, this is great. I really love to do this work, and kind of gave me the confidence to say I can go and do it on my own. So here I am.
I love it. I love that, I think that what you shared kind of is a little bit similar to my own journey in terms of when I left my last job. I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to get my next paycheck from or how. And and I also like anchored myself in something that I knew that I wanted to get for myself, which was a coaching skill set. And and it's like and it's like, I think sometimes people, I work with a lot of people in career transition, so I kind of speak from that knowing of like people feel like they gotta figure it all out all at once, like kind of as your intro kind of, was kind of alluding to, you don't have to, and that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
all it takes is to just know one thing about what your heart desires and allow yourself to pursue that and give yourself permission to give yourself space to see where that goes. And like here you are, like you've launched your whole brand, your whole business platform, and you've even transitioned it a bit from, I think, the original,
Mm-hmm.
vision. And so I think that like brings me back to this idea of the body, which like totally resonates for me personally, and also I see it in my clients, right? So the overvaluing of the mind and being in the mind more than actually it's we're meant to live from our hearts, and the heart is meant to really drive us, right? So um I'd love to hear a little bit more about what role the body played for you in your transitioning and how that plays into the work that you do now.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had a very disembodied lifestyle, and I was also living like close to New York City, and I was commuting, and I was just not really taking care of myself, and not even aware that I wasn't really taking care of myself. And so, when I moved back to Ireland, um, I also connected very much to the land here, to the nature and the wildness and just a space. There's a lot of open space over here. And I really love to walk, and I love to like hike and swim. So I just started to do a lot more movement. And it wasn't even, it just became normal for me to do a lot, like to be always out and about and walking. And yeah, and I just really started to notice the difference, in every aspect, emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically. I just felt like I felt like my health was really improving. And um, I started off my career as a biochemist. I always had this interest in the body and how it works. And so I know how all the
Mm,
cellular stuff functions and all of that. But what I really started to get interested in was more of the psychology of the mind and the body connection and how that works, and how, we, our bodies kind of represent our thoughts, where our mind and bodies are so connected. And yet we don't even realize or we don't always tap into the body wisdom. And so I was really fascinated with this, and I started to investigate. And then I actually enrolled in a certification program. So I did another program in mind body therapy, which I graduated from last year. So it was really amazing for me to be in that program as well, because I started to like, get the benefits of understanding now all of this connection and how it works, and how I could be more connected to myself and my thoughts, and how that reflects in my body, and start to also listen to get the cues, the sensations from my body to help me, orientate and get, not always be in my mind. And I think like the most powerful thing is that the body is always in the present tense. And that is something like the
mm,
mind is very rarely, right? When we're in our minds, we are always projecting something in the future, worrying about something that could never happen, reflecting on the past or rehashing something. We're very, very seldom in the present moment, but our bodies are always. So, and that means that whatever we think about in our minds, it gets reflected in our bodies. So if we start to, worry and have anxiety and think about negative things, then our body starts to feel those thoughts. It invokes the reactions, our bodily functions. And we start to, we can even start to notice maybe our physiology changes. Maybe we kind of like, come down in ourselves, or maybe we start to feel a pain somewhere, or something in our stomach, or something, and that all represents that the body is reacting to what the mind thinks, because the body thinks that that what's happening in the mind is actually happening in the present tense. So often when we get into states of anxiety and fear, this invokes the nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze, reaction. And that has a big toll on our body, because that makes, our bodies really go into these hormonal drives, and, it's like puts our body under a lot of duress and stress. And we often go into that level of duress without even realizing that we're doing it to our body. So our bodies are quite constantly under attack from our own thoughts. And once we start to realize that, we can actually change the way we think. And if we start to think on the more positive scale, that also gets to reflect in our bodies. So we start to think, more joyous, uplifting, happy thoughts, and that will reflect on our emotions, and that will reflect in how we feel in our body. So it's so powerful when you start to notice this effect.
Yeah. Like you're so much there. There's so much richness there, and I just love it. Like this like biochemist background like comes back into like your life right now. Actually, speaking of body, I'm gonna honor my body because I'm sitting in a chair that's like not serving me. So I'm changing. Oh, that's so much better. I have one of those knee chairs, for your back, but then like I'm like I can't sit upright in there right now. Okay. Honoring the body, like that's all you got to do right in the moment is like, what does your body tell you? We practice what we preach here on Talk About It Tuesday. But you said something. You talked about like positive, thoughts, and I just, you know, I think that, and I know because you do the deeper work yourself and you help people do the deeper work, that what you're saying is it's not about a spiritual bypass, right? It's not about this like fake, like I'm just gonna have a positive thought, even though you don't really embody it and feel it. So I'm wondering if you could talk more about like what do you really mean by like the positive thoughts that may not feel natural? Like how do you get to that place if your natural tendency is anxiety and worrisome thoughts?
Well, we need to be able to relax, right? So once we can relax our bodies, our minds and our bodies can go into a state of repair. So, there's a natural pathways that our bodies can take to help correct that duress that we put our bodies under. So we need to learn how to relax. And that typically is doing something that is self-soothing. So first of all, we need to be careful about having balance in our life, because if we're just in overdrive and working too much and not really taking care to build in breaks and times to have the downtime on our bodies, we're going to find it really hard to switch off. So I'm all about routines and rituals. And what I find is really amazing is to have a really powerful morning ritual and a really powerful evening ritual. So like making time for yourself first thing in the morning to start your day and really connect into all aspects of yourself. And then in the evening to really have this wind down before you go to bed, and sleep is one of the best ways of relaxing and repairing that we can have. But so many people don't have good quality sleep because many reasons, but one of them is that we don't actually, or we find it hard to switch off and get into a good sleeping pattern. And since I moved back to Ireland, I'm in the country, and there's very few cars and no night pollution, like very dark skies here. I can sleep so soundly, but I also take care that I have this ritual before I go to bed, that I, turn off the TV or the devices or whatever. I really spend some time, connecting to how the day went for me, and just kind of closing out my day mindfully, and then just really enjoying, the aspect of now I'm going to go and rest. I mean, I'm a kind of person that loves to go to bed early. I mean, I don't have any resistance to go to bed. But so I have some kind of joy around it. And, and I think once we can be very mindful, it can really help to promote sleep, because often we can be lying awake in bed thinking about something that's happened in our day.
Mhm.
And so if we need to do that reflection, I'm all for it, but try to do it a bit earlier. So bring that forward
Mm.
so that by the time we go and sleep, we've kind of put that to rest as much as we can. And I think it's really just like checking in with the body, and there's many different ways we can do that. And body scan is probably the best way. And body scans are it's a type of meditation, but it's very mainstream now, I would say. And all of the kind of meditation apps have it. And it's just really being mindful just to kind of check in everywhere in the body. And if we're holding on to anything, to release it basically and
Mm.
anchor ourselves into our breath. And our breath is very calming. If we want to try and relax, just connecting to our life force, which is our breath, is something that can really be soothing if we are feeling any kind of, I don't know, spinning thoughts or anxiety or whatever. So there's many ways that the body can anchor us in the moment. And anytime we're in the moment, then we can really see what's happening. And once our mind is not in the future or in the past, but it's in the moment, then it can be very calm. It can let go of some of those racing thoughts. So monkey mind or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. I agree. Great advice coming from Emma. And by the way, anybody who's watching, by all means, like this platform is meant for you to ask any questions that you may have as we discuss. And what I'm hearing you say, because we started this particular conversation around, how do you make the positive thinking, the positive thoughts, not a spiritual bypass, but something that can be real for you. And what I heard, my interpretation of where you went with that was that we have to start with our bodies. We have to let our bodies relax so
Yeah,
that we can let our minds go into those positive places that I think there's also natural wiring for. But
right.
is that, I mean, I don't know. Tell me if you have anything to add, or if I missed kind of your point there.
Yeah, I think once we have any kind of control on our thoughts, right? So first of all, we are not just our thoughts. I think that's the basic thing that I would like people to understand. But our thoughts become such a dominant force in our life that we forget we have other ways of being. And
Mm,
that's what mindfulness is all about. Mindfulness is all about knowing what you're doing when you're doing it,
mm,
basically. And often we are on autopilot because we're just thinking something and our body's doing something else and we're not connecting the two. And in order for us to feel good, we need to be really out of the anxiety loop or out of the fear loop or
mm,
out of that. And I was talking about the self-soothing because that helps us to kind of come to presence, come to relax, come to connect to ourselves. What's a great way to invoke more of the positive thinking is like the gratitude. I said I reflect on my day, but I didn't say it in the way that I wanted to express, is to really be thankful for the day that I've had. And most days, I would say I have many things to be thankful for, and it's just the small little things. But the more that we can connect to that and the more that we can, and every night I also say thank you to my body because because of my health.
mm,
If we are healthy in our bodies, then we can do what we want in our lives. And often it's only when that kind of health starts to deteriorate do we even
mhm.
realize how much we took for granted with our body. So I'm always in the practice of thanking my thanking my body um, for all that it does. And our bodies do so much. I mean, like it's quite amazing if you think about it.
Well, absolutely, absolutely, and I want to go back to what you were saying about gratitude because I think that I think there's a lot out there about gratitude practices, and it can almost be, it just be one of those things where it's like, yeah, yeah, okay, gratitude, just like yeah, 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 yoga and meditation, whatever, and like for so many people, it doesn't necessarily connect or right, our rational brains want to be like, well, how is a gratitude practice going to actually like lead to me living a better life or having what I want in my life or what have you. And from my perspective, just from a very practical view of gratitude practices, is that we give so much space, right, to the negative, the anxiety, the what we don't like, the what we're mad at ourselves for, like all of those things. And we don't give nearly as much space for the good, for the joy. And so, on one level, the gratitude to me, I think opens us up to say, oh, my life includes all this other stuff that I'm actually not honoring as much as I am honoring my dissatisfaction with where things are. So I just wanna A, offer that and kind of get your thoughts too um on gratitude, and if you've always had a practice, or if your practice has deepened as far as gratitude.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when we're in that kind of constant state of like what we don't have or what we can't do, because especially when we're in the pandemic and a lot of our freedoms are gone, we're very inhibited. It can be like it can be that state of disappointment or frustration or whatever. Um, and the more that we're in that cycle, the more it's going to impact on our energy and on our life force, on our motivation, everything, right? And if we flip it, so if we go to the other side and if we start to just be grateful and thankful for the little things that we can do in the parameters that we're under, so like the new normal that we're in now of this, in this kind of lockdown, stay at home kind of world that we're in, is that just going for a walk is such a big deal now for people. Just being able to get out and go for a walk and even meet a friend on a walk. Like that's just taken on a whole new significance. And even like maybe getting a takeout coffee on your walk, or just doing the small simple things, right? And
Mm,
that's where you find the gratitude. It's
mm,
it's really in being able to do things that matter and that you
mm,
can connect to, and that just brings you a little bit of joy. And it's often only when we kind of slow down and open our eyes and see what it is that we start to even realize what we have,
mm,
you know?
mm.
And for me, like I get so much joy and gratitude from nature, and I live very immersed in nature. So every day I wake up, I'm always, as soon as I see it, I'm like already filled with joy.
Yeah. I
But
am,
like,
yeah,
it can even be like making your cup of coffee in the
right.
morning, just really looking forward to, that you're going to have a lovely, nice, warm cup of coffee that's going to give you the start you need to your day, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. Just starting really small and
Mm,
and then I think also the embodiment of the gratitude comes with practice. It comes with
yeah.
yeah, and I love what Emma was saying about, she keeps a stone by her side and give thanks and creating a tactile ritual, I think can be really powerful, right? Like where there's actually, right, your body is in relationship to the gratitude in a physical way.
Mm,
Um, I think that's really interesting. And I want to bring it back to, right, because so we're kind of we've been talking about your journey. We've been talking about the things that have made a difference. We've been talking about the body and how that can really help us
hmm
just with our overall wellness and state of being. And I know that like part of what we wanted to talk about and what was in your heart to talk about was like, hey guys, like I know that like the world is kind of cray cray right now. And guess what? It's also a perfect time to plan your future. And those two things can feel like, very juxtaposed ideas.
right.
So I'd love to like hear, so like here we are, right? February 2nd, Groundhog Day here in the US. Right? Where, oh my God, perfect time to have this conversation, right? Like how many people are watching this or will watch this who are like, yeah, I fucking feel like it's the same day over and over and over again. And we want to plan a future that looks
Mm,
different. So how do we even start to imagine that when we're living fucking Groundhog Day?
yes. Well, first of all, I think, like I was saying earlier, we have much more control over our thoughts than we realize, and I'm testament to that. And this is like the first thing I want people to hold on to, you know, and that it's very easy to go on that slippery slope of, yes, Groundhog Day, I can't do this, I can't do that, whatever, you know. And that is a state of mind, a state of being, and it's going to pull your energy down. And it's going to take a bit of practice, but we can also say, okay, that's what's happening, and I can still find time to do other things that maybe I had not thought of doing before, and try to use this time as an investment for my future. Because, you know, we don't have so much demands on our time, because there's really not much we can do apart from the work and the, you know, family and the normal responsibilities. But we're not, you know, most people are not commuting anymore or doing other, you know, running around doing things that we used to do. So we have extra time, and we can make a decision that we're going to actually invest that time in ourselves, and we're actually going to start to see if we can start to be more embodied. So really start to pay attention to our bodies, start to connect to our bodies, start to have this gratitude, start to have better energy. Because the more that we're in this joy and gratitude and feeling good and feeling healthy, and, you know, this all brings our energy up. And the more energy we have, the more we can start to do things that we want to do to invest in our future. And there is so much we can already start to do. And it starts with getting connected to ourselves, because I am responsible for myself, and everybody else is responsible for their selves. And this is the biggest, most important relationship we have in our lives, is the one we have to ourselves. And yet I would say it's for a lot of us, it's overlooked until something happens, something goes wrong, there's a crisis, or there's a big, I don't know, emotional upset or something, and then we start to wonder. But for many, like for a lot of, I can say for my own life, I was on autopilot for a long time. And once we start to claim our relationship to ourselves and honor it and start to invest in it, then we can really start to build ourselves up to the kind of future that we want. And it's like, you know, it's really an investment, because we are the ones who can decide on what we can create our future. We have all created the place we've got to now in our lives. It's been down to us, right? And we can start to direct where we want to go next. And maybe this time can allow us to think, oh, actually, I'm kind of going this way, but maybe I don't want to go this way. Maybe there's another way for me to go. Maybe there's more. Maybe now that I see what's happened in the last few months, or, you know, almost a year, maybe there's something else that's stirring inside me that I might want to discover. And the more that we can take our attention from the external and put it to the internal, the more we can be in this discovery, curiosity, intrigue, whatever, trying to really understand what makes us who we are. And I also want to say that we are all individual, unique people. We are one of a kind. And that is also something to be honored. Like, there's no other Tosca in the world, Tosca di Matteo. There's no other Claire Campbell. Right? And we need to own that. I mean, often we look at others and we want to kind of, or we see, oh, you know, maybe we're interested in that because they're doing it, rather than really look to what our gifts are and how we want to really uncover that and really want to honor that and bring that to the world. Because if we don't bring it to the world, we're just, you know, we're wasting it. We're wasting who we are. And that's one other thing I want to say about the corporate world. I did not show my whole self in that world. I very much was kind of pigeonholed, and the kind of characteristics that, you know, that were respected in the job I had, you know, about getting the work done and all of that, they were very strong. But other aspects of me, maybe my more feminine side, were very underplayed. And I only in the last 6 months when I was leaving did I bring everything. And it was so well received. Like, people said to me, many people said to me, wow, like, you are so much more, I don't know, powerful now.
Oh, give me an example. Give me an example of what you brought to the table in your last 6 months. Oh, and by the way, total side note, I just listened to Dare to Lead podcast with Renee and Melinda Gates, and she talked about how she realized she hated the culture she was in at Microsoft, and so she just decided to, like, she was in this dissonance, and so she just decided to be herself, and like her surprise was that she was incredibly successful. So side note to listeners and to you, Claire, if you haven't heard that, because I think
I
it
have
was,
heard it. I have heard it.
oh, there you go. So tell me what you did to bring.
I love the way you connected me to Melinda Gates there.
Oh my God, well heck yeah, of course. You're like, she's helping save the world, you're helping save the world one person at a time, like absolutely.
Yeah, I think I really embodied more of my feminine side, you know, because I believe I was kind of in more the male dominated, competitive, you know, bring your A game, whatever. And I felt like some of the softer, more feminine compassion and patience and, you know, taking time for the people, that aspect was very appreciated, I think. You know, there was never really any time for that. And what I did really, because everybody that I was working with was being impacted by this reorganizational change, you know, and it's very difficult to give up something in those terms, you know, and people had a lot of insecurity, uncertainty, you know, yeah, there was so much happening on the personal level. So I decided, rather than just be all about the business side, I wanted to help people connect on the personal level and really honor what they were feeling, what they were going through. So in my team meetings, I used to like ask people, so what, you know, tell me, give me one word how you're feeling today. Like bringing the feelings into any kind of meeting.
Oh my God, what a strange concept. Yeah.
But it was so powerful because once people could put it on the table and acknowledge it, and most people were kind of in the same boat anyway, then it was like seen and heard. Okay, we're not trying to, you know, we're not trying to say that that's not happening, but we want to say now, being aware that we are feeling like that, what else can we do as a team to help each other get through it?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like, you know, I feel like it's a bit of a shame that only came at the end. But it also helped me to see that I should not be hiding parts of myself. Or I don't know if hiding was the word, but I just downplayed them because I didn't see anybody else doing it.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like that these skills, and you know, the term soft skills, you know, I'm like on a movement to like, you know, rename that, which is like, you know, these are the fundamental human skills, right? Like no other skill matters if you don't know how to create relationships, right? And what, you know, so even that, right? But to your point exactly, right? You're not seeing people being celebrated for their how, right? For the human side of how they do their work. And so why would you exhibit that? It's not being modeled for you, nor is it being encouraged or talked about. So, you know, I think that's the moment that we're in this, in the world history of like, of somehow productivity and efficiency and capitalist mentality became more important than actually being human in all of our spaces, you know? And I think that's why so many people struggle. Even you said earlier, right? Like, I'm unique, you're unique. And how do we celebrate that and embrace it? And I think, you know, especially with the clients that I interact with, I think people get so lost in who they are because they haven't been encouraged to bring all of themselves to the table and their unique superpowers, because, you know, we just go with the dominant culture kind of strengths, or the strengths that you know have been outwardly or subconsciously communicated that the organization wants to see, and then therefore we feel like we're like everybody else because we're bringing forth the sameness, and then like those little nuggets that make us like you know, different, we don't even know what they are anymore, you know? Sorry, I'm just going on a rampage, but I think it's so powerful to talk about this because people aren't alone. Like the people that struggle and feel lost and I don't know who I am, you're not alone. It's the epidemic that we're, you know, that is not being talked about as much.
Yeah, and also corporations are missing out by not encouraging people to be all of themselves.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because I really believe that the more human we can be in any of our aspect of our lives, the more, like you said, we're going to have the relationships, the connection, we're going to, you know, really have each other's backs and really do very powerful work. You know, once people are
Yeah.
seen and heard and they feel that they don't have to just only show one side of themselves. And
Yeah.
the other thing I want to say is, over the time I was in my corporate career, I really, and since I've come out of it, I really see the way that things get normalized that shouldn't be.
Mm.
And what I mean by this is how hard and long hours people have to do.
Right.
You know, that kind of lifestyle of, you know, 60 hours plus, and getting to the edge of burnout and exhaustion and not taking care of themselves. And, you know, that this is somehow expected and normalized and everybody's doing it. It's not okay. It's
Yeah.
really not okay. And by taking, like, having breaks and being able to recharge and rest, you know, that is actually more going to make us more productive than this kind of keep going, keep, you know, keep the slog,
Right.
don't take the foot off the pedal. You know, when we're going at that speed and, you know, that pace and relentless, there's no end in sight. It's so harmful for our mind, our body, our spirit, everything. And a lot of my clients
Yeah.
are, and then you put the pandemic on top and people are at home and they don't even,
Right.
can't even have, like, you know, they can't even go to the office. You have all the home stuff on top and people are so close to being burnt out. It's, you know, a lot of my clients are in that stage or in that process. And what I really try to do them is encourage them to not overschedule their day, not to feel
Mm.
guilty about taking breaks or a
Yeah.
lunch. I had a client that said to me, you know, she worked, I don't know, 18-hour, 16-hour day, but she took a 20-minute lunch break. And I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, again, going back to, right, what we're talking about is how do we, that the future is an inside job, that how do we see the future that we want for ourselves? And it is through unearthing the conditioning, right? Unearthing what has been normalized that doesn't feel right. It's like questioning, like, how
Yeah.
am I going through my day? And is there another way of being other than feeling like 20 minutes break in a 16-hour day is enough? And right, and like honoring our truths of and asking ourselves, what what am I hiding from even myself?
Mm.
Um, so that, yeah, we can discover, I think through that work, and you tell me if you feel the same way, but through that work, we can really start to uncover what is it we really desire. And then we can start to build a future that aligns with that new understanding of what we really want, not like what the world thinks we should want, but like what we want.
Right. So what I encourage all my clients to do is to really notice what energizes you. So
Mm-hmm.
where do you get your energy from?
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, what depletes you?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we start to use, you know, so like I remember going to a conference once with Ariana Huffington. She was there and she was
Mm-hmm.
launching her Thrive book, I think, at the time. And she said, people tend, this is like 5 or 6 years ago, she said, people tend to take better care of their cell phone battery than they do their own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true.
So true.
We always know, oh, we need to plug it in, or we need to have a spare.
Yes.
But we don't take care of our own batteries. And then
Yeah.
we don't even notice that we're actually on the red, on the flat. And then
Yeah.
suddenly we've no power. You know, we're powerless. And
Yeah.
so, and so what I would really encourage people is start to really track that, start to really notice and start to realize that things that energize us and are things that take us away from our analytical thinking into more of our right brain creativity side, help us to get connected to, you know, different ways of being, and switching off a lot of the brain and connecting to more of the
Yeah.
process of being creative and you know, doing something, and it can be something with the hands or something, photography, where you're out looking at something. So you get very absorbed in other things that are happening rather than being in this analytical, over processing, critical thinking, trying to get solutions and all of that. So yeah, really start to notice what is it that energizes you, and start to build in those activities more into your life so that you can get the benefits. And A, it will help you to switch off. B, it will recharge your battery. It will help you when we start to do more creative things, it really brings us alive. So it helps us to, be more in that moment, and I'm actually doing something that I enjoy. And we can do these kind of things in a pandemic. We can do things that we enjoy and that can absorb us and take us out of the news cycle or the whatever, and start to notice how we are when we're doing things like that. Like maybe it's creative cooking, trying to master a new recipe, and how absorbed you can be in that space, for example. And then just how do we feel afterward? Checking in, maybe how do I feel before and how do I feel afterwards, and noticing the effect, noticing the benefits and the feelings that we're having,
Right.
And the other thing I would say is, don't leave the things that energize you to the end of your day, because the things that deplete you will take you down so low that you won't have the energy for them. So flip it. Try to do something that energizes you first thing in the morning, and then you get the benefits all day. And it doesn't have to be that you give it a long time, but even like 10-20 minutes, whatever it is.
Oh my God, it's so funny you say that, because just recently I started like doing like adult coloring book again as another outlet of releasing my mind. It's basically another form of meditation. And so this morning I was like, oh, I think I'm just gonna color first before I do anything. And then I felt a little weird. I was like, oh man, like usually I do it maybe at the end of the day to unwind, but I was like, I'm going to start with this because it just makes me happy to like color a little bit. It's just another way of thinking. And I want to acknowledge too, right, like a couple of different things, because we clearly have a particular perspective. We're both, white women, right? Like we're in the middle of, here in the States, Black History Month. We have a lot of like working moms, where the time factor may feel like the opposite of feeling like we have more time, we have less time. And I just want to acknowledge also the way that we're like, that we have showed up in our corporate environments, and the privilege that we have to bring, even if it's not our 100% self, we still have more privilege to bring more of ourselves than a lot of other minorities and marginalized communities and things like that. So I want to honor and acknowledge that there's that reality that is very different from our own experiences. And that these concepts that we're talking about, right, that they're accessible, that are going inside and understanding ourselves better, and pushing the envelope and saying, what part of me am I hiding, and where can I bring it out, and where do I want to experiment. And it's now is the time, even with things of, right, the pressures of overworking and all that stuff, that we're in this time where we're facing two things, right? There's like an awakening about all the shit that's really messed up, that's just traumatic, big T, little t, and so the envelope is being pushed more and more to question those things, and we're still in these environments that it's happening and being allowed to happen, which I think means we have to be more willing to take risks to continue to push the envelope out,
Right. Yeah.
so that we can pave the way for new ways of being to be embraced, and for all of ourselves to be out there. And even I think in this vein, I know, like, I consider myself an ally. I think you do too, from what I know about you. Even we create space for others, and in that giving, and in that, right, that there's so much for us to see about ourselves and to receive in the giving of space. So I don't like I don't know, I'm going on a little bit of a rant, but um just honoring how difficult it can be, in the realities of our environments
Mm.
to let our flower, truly open
Mm.
because the situations are different for different people. But I'm just curious, yeah, like if you have any thoughts on that or what you lend to, to folks who may still have it in their mind, well, I can't do that, I can't do that, you know?
Yeah, so I want to go back to something I said earlier. The relationship that we have to ourselves is the most important one we're ever going to have in our life, right? And when we
Mm-hmm.
start to really own that and really connect to ourselves and really understand who we are and what we want and how, what kind of life that we want and start to stand up for ourselves, and everything else shifts. Everything around us
Mm-hmm.
shifts. And the more that we don't honor that and put others first and kind of, keep going with the roles that we've already created in our lives where we step in and do too much maybe for others and don't let them take care of themselves because
Mm-hmm.
for many different reasons. um the more that we don't the more that we put the energy into doing it for others and not putting it into ourselves, the more that we allow these kind of things to continue. And often when we do something for somebody else, it can come from a good place, but actually it can really not have the same effect. It can actually make the other person not have the experience for themselves. So not let them grow by figuring out how to do it themselves. And often through our conditioning or who we are in our families and what kind of people we are, we often give too much. And there's a bit of a price to pay for that. And the price is back to ourselves. And if you start to think about that in a currency of, okay, I could do it for that person because it could be easy for me to do it. But at the same time, if that depletes me, then how do I adjust that balance in myself?
Mm-hmm.
And the other person may not even want you to do it. Maybe just used to you stepping in and doing it. So there can be
Mm-hmm.
all these other dynamics that start to happen. And what I would say is that once we start to notice this about us, like what is it that makes us want to deflect from ourselves and do something out there, we start to notice what that is, and we start to question it, and we start to own it, and we start to say to ourselves, actually, if I'm not going to step in there, I'm going to see what happens. And
Mm.
maybe by just stepping back and letting that space, something else amazing
Yes.
comes. But the more that we keep in the same cycles and the same patterns and the same ways that we've been doing it, without realizing that we can change it and that we can take that energy and put it into ourselves, the more it's just going to, the status quo is going to continue. But when we start to actually give ourselves the energy, and this is one of the concepts I talk about, befriending ourselves. So once we
Mm.
start to actually say, oh no, instead of doing this for that person, I'm going to do it for myself. That creates a whole paradigm shift in our
Mm.
life, and we are worthy of our own time and energy, no less than anybody else in our lives. And I don't want to really comment on the parental roles there, because obviously if you're a parent, you have children to take care of, but it does not mean that your needs are not as important.
Mm.
And that is something that I believe is fundamental for us to feel fulfilled and content, is to even first of all know what our needs are, and then meet our needs ourselves. Like nobody
Mm.
else is responsible for meeting our
Mm.
needs. And I think that's very evident now in the pandemic, when we are kind of stripped back of all the social interactions that we used to have, and, the people that we used to be able to connect to. And, once we bring it back to ourselves, we realize, okay, well, we have to do it for ourselves. And we can do a lot for
Mm.
ourselves when we start to have that type of thinking and mindset and start to question the conditioning. And if others expect us to do something, and if we actually say, you know what, this time I'm not actually going to do that. What is the effect of that? And how does that
Yeah.
create something different?
That's so important, this idea, I think, and especially in the, I would say, certainly women, right, with there's
Mm,
are known for overgiving, but I think it happens with guys too, and certain individuals, and and it's like, in this idea of how do we plan for our future, we have to take our time back for ourselves, right? And our energy back for ourselves so that we can do that planning. And sometimes that often, means that we need to ask for support, which also, I think men and women struggle with it. First of all, men have a stigma, right, about self-sufficiency and all that stuff, and like women, what's been indoctrinated into us, it's just everywhere. It's just the patriarchy period, which impacts
Mm.
every gender and everyone on that spectrum. So, um, I think that uh, yeah, we have to get better at, like you said, honoring our needs and being willing to ask for support. And even starting that on a very small scale can make a huge difference. And yeah, Wendy here says once we take care of ourselves, we're better able to be there for others, right? Like, absolutely. It's like you can't give from an empty cup. I mean, that's what you were saying too about like don't do those things that give you energy at the end of the day. You're already depleted, right? You
Yeah.
have to, yeah, it's like, and it's a
And
little bit of a misnomer. Sorry, go
yeah, and
ahead. Yeah.
don't put your needs last
Yeah.
either. Like don't put other people's needs first because that will also deplete you.
Mm-hmm.
And if we serve
Yeah.
our own needs, then we can, when we, when that's taken care of, then we can look to how we support others. But if we only do take care of our own needs as a last on the list or last resort, we're never going to fulfill what we need
Right.
because we won't have the energy for it, or we won't have the time for it, or we won't have the ability to do it because we are already, over our capacity.
Yeah.
And that's also what I want. This is kind of thing in, like you always say, ask if you want something done, ask a busy person because they'll do it. You know that, expression?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that again for me is like normalizing that,
Mm.
some people can just get things done, and so they should be the ones that have to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. It's not
Yeah.
it's not about that, somebody that has the capacity or the ability should always do it. Because where's the growth? Where's the development? Where's the learning for somebody else to do it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think, and sometimes, I think that sometimes by us stepping back, allowing somebody else to figure it out themselves, it can really change the dynamic of that person. It can help us by giving ourselves back, replenishing ourselves what we need. We can also acknowledge that we're as important as others, and that is in itself is a huge thing, that we deserve our time and our energy
Yes.
as much as anybody else does.
And that is the revolution, it's crazy. Like when I even talk about like I'm sitting here going, the concepts that we are sharing, this isn't rocket science. Yet, like it's so important to talk about it because this world is so used to this way we've been operating that is detrimental to our health. It's detrimental to living the life that's
Mm-hmm.
within our hearts to live.
Mm-hmm.
And so even just having this conversation around, oh, by the way, like let's drive awareness of what we're doing, and oh, let's connect with our bodies. Like I think it's important for people to hear this because it's not stuff it's not on the nightly news. Nobody's up there. It's not in. We're not saying how do we find another way of being here. And so I think, again, I think the work that you're doing, to help people find their way, their unique way in the world to live their best life is so important. And I'm excited, to support you and to hear your perspective on this. There's so much work to be done. Um, and so as I know, like we could be talking about this, gosh, for hours. There's so much here. You've given so much great advice that I'm just excited for everybody who's been on and who will watch. And as we wrap, I'm just curious, first of all, is there anything else that you feel like really compelled that you want to share? And also tell people a little bit more about what you do, how you can help, and where to find you if they want to explore working together.
Yeah. So I know we could talk for it. I just feel like we just got started. But
I
anyway,
know, I know.
I just want people to really, anybody that's listening to this, to really understand that you have more agency over your life than you think. So when I say that, it's all about what we are thinking, right? What we think creates the life that we have. And when we inhibit ourselves, we're not going to get the life that we want. When we really believe in ourselves and we really put it out there and we start to walk towards that and take one step at a time and see how that, see what happens when we go that direction, then amazing things can happen. And I really feel like once we can kind of understand what's our desires, what fuels us, what energizes us, what makes us feel alive, and start to put our energy there, then things start to unfold for us. We start to understand a bit more, and we start to connect a few dots, and we start to even meet new people that are in that field, and things start to open up for us that we never would have got to if we stayed with these limiting, I'm just going to keep going here because this is all I know, or this is all I have the energy for. So we have so much agency over where we want to go in our lives once we start to be in the driving seat. And that is about understanding how our mind works, how our body works, how our desires work, how we can start to really put our energy into where we want to go, how we grow in that direction, and then see what happens. And we don't have to know the end point. And that's the most amazing thing. Like, I have a mindset of anything is possible.
Oh.
And that's because I don't even know what is possible.
My candle for our talk.
Yeah.
Everything is possible.
And I say anything, but everything is possible, right? And so don't limit to what we know. Like take the lid off. We don't even know what's possible. We don't even know what the future brings. But we can really put our energy into going where we want to, how we want to align with that future. What's the best future we want to have for ourselves? And even though we're in a pandemic, even though we can't do the normal things that we used to do, we still have a lot of power, and we should really invest this time in trying to figure out ourselves. What makes us tick? What energizes us? What fuels us? What depletes us? How we can be more in our bodies, how we can start to take care of ourselves, take care of our mind, take care of our nutrition, take care of our sleep, really build ourselves up, make us the healthiest version of ourselves. And once we're in that kind of way of being, then we have energy for life. We're not sitting on the sofa tired, just watching whatever's on the Netflix or whatever. We're actually looking to do things that meet our passions. And once we start being active in that area of our life, we connect to our aliveness and we start to really have full lives. And we all know with this pandemic that our lives are precious. We don't know how much time we have on this planet. So we really, while we're here, why don't we just make the most of it, And small shifts, like small steps, small shifts can have big ripple effects. And once we start to own that and notice that and be with that, it really can then drive us further. And it can be a little scary at the beginning, to do something out of the norm and, make these kind of changes. But we need a bit of courage, and we need a lot of curiosity. And once we start to build that, then the rest comes, and then we start to build new connections, and we start to see things differently. And, we start to have the kind of lives that we're here to have.
I love it. Preach on, Claire. I love it. Like, yes. Yes.
Like, that's all we need to know. And the
Yeah.
world will open up. It's
Yeah.
coming. We have a vaccine. We don't, I can't tell you the day, but it's coming. So what can we do to get ready? That we can relaunch ourselves out in the world and start to really have, the lives that we want to have. And we are capable of getting what we want. It's all on us to do. And once we start to own that and own our responsibility, and look for how we can take small steps to make these changes and see where that takes us and be part of the process and start to really, get get a lot out of that process itself, then we start to have this momentum. And once we're in the momentum, it's going to accelerate, you know? That's just
Absolutely.
physics.
You
This
just
is pure physics.
yes. Yeah, so you hear Claire, let me boil it down for the audience, okay? If you want a better life, do the fucking work and look at yourself, okay? And you'll have it. It'll come. It'll come. And where can people find you? Where if they want to learn more, where can they go?
Yeah, so my business name is The Life and Soul Coach. So thelifeandsoulcoach.com is my website. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel, but I haven't done anything on it. Yeah, like I'm based in Ireland, but I have my clients are global. If anybody wants to talk about this, reach out through social media. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm always open to have discovery sessions with people if they want to learn more about this kind of work and how, what I have a couple of programs that I'm running to help people like more facilitated guidance into this area. But yeah, I love to make new connections and I'm very passionate about this. So yeah.
Clearly, that's why I love having you on. I love having people that are passionate about what they do, and yeah, and Wendy is here saying, we need to teach this to our children. Absolutely agree. All these concepts, and the more that people know it now, the more it will be spread. So, cheers to that. Cheers to the
Yeah.
spreading of the new gospel with
And
Claire Campbell. So thank you so much. Again, like your passion is real. It's palpable. I feel it in my body for sure. And I'm excited to see like where things go for you in your business. I hope to make it out to Ireland and visit your part of that country and discover all the beauty that you've seen over there. So that's what I'm putting in my future box is trip
hey,
to Ireland.
you'd be most welcome.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, thank you
thank
for
you.
having me. Thank you so much for having me. And likewise, I really love the passion that you're bringing into the world, and you're unstoppable. So keep going. And
Oh.
I just love also the way you're connecting your audience to all different modalities and different, speakers and opening up people's world. That's like there's so much that you're
Mm.
bringing to the table here, Tosca, with your generosity. So thank you.
Oh. Thank you so much. And you are going to love next week's episode. I've got Dr. Aisha O'Malley, my BFF, is coming on to talk about leading with empathy.
Oh
And
yeah.
she has just such a rich life experiences. She's a heart transplant recipient. She's a professor of business communications at University at Buffalo. So I think you're really going to enjoy that one too. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and sharing this with a broader audience after we're closed.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll share it too. I know a lot of people probably wanted to join but couldn't do it yet. So
Yeah, because they're busy working in the machine, you know? All right, my friends. I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your evening.
yeah, you too. Have a good day.
Thanks. Ciao for now.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.